In the first section, we showed how we could quickly create some modules on a development machine and package those modules up for deployment. In this section, we're going to look at how we can use the packages that we've created, manage them, and deploy them to a repository so that they can be used for production. Turning to our development machine, you'll recall that we created two packages in the first section. Let's start by using the ARP tool, the Apposite Repository Publisher, to manage those packages. If I click the Packages tab, I'm given the option to import some packages. So let's import the two packages that we just built. MyApp Tier 1. We import that. And let's just import Tier 2 at the same time. And looking at the packages, we now see that we have MyApp Tier 1 and MyApp Tier 2. These packages, these physical files that we created in the last section, are now being managed by the packaging tool, the Publisher tool, which means that we can add some descriptive metadata. MyApp Tier 1. This is the front end JMS/www. I can look at the package version. I can give a version description to this first release. And the other thing I can do is I can describe the package dependencies. Here we've got no dependencies, so what I'm going to do is automatically say this Tier 1 necessarily requires that we have a Tier 2 system installed as well, a Tier 2 package installed as well. So let's just click Auto Add. What I get now is a package dependency where this Tier 1 module depends upon Tier 2 version greater than or equal to 1.0.0. Let's add another manual dependency. Let's say that this package also requires XML core from the main NetKernel library. And let's say it requires a 1.00 version of that. So I've now created two dependencies for this package. Let's just add a little bit of metadata for Tier 2. Common services. And again, we can add a version description. The text I'm writing here is just wiki text, and that gets rendered and presented to the Apposite client when it connects to the repository as HTML and is also searchable. Let's add another dependency here. Let's assume that this requires lang groovy greater than 1.00 from the master repository. These dependencies are purely logical. There's no physical connection here. It's just a constraint that must be satisfied before it be allowed to be installed on the client when we go to production. So we've prepared our packages. They're under management, so we've got one version of each of these packages in the system. What we want to do now is take these packages and construct a repository for them so that we can use that repository for deployment. We go to the Repositories tab. We need to create a new repository. Let's call it Demo. And just like the packages, a repository is also versioned. So now I need to create a version for the demo repository. Let's call it version 1. So I've now got a version 1 repository. Let's add those packages to it. If I go into the base main set, I see that I've got some packages that aren't deployed. Here, Tier 1 and Tier 2. So I've got these two packages now in my base repository in the main set of that. A repository can have any number of sets. Maybe I'd want to have a main test set as well. The sets just give the end user in a production system the ability to select and decide which category of package they want to deploy. In this case, everything's going in the main, which is the default. Having added some packages to my repository, I can now build it. I click Generate, and I'm asked to provide a key store and some passwords. This is so that the packages and the repository itself can all be signed. The alias is demo. Provide the password. And my package my repository has now been built. There's a build report provided down here, but I'm just interested in the repository itself, which I'll download and save on my desktop. If we go and look at the desktop now, we see the repository is here. It contains a repo directory. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually extract the repository to my desktop. If I look inside this repository extraction, you'll see there's a packages directory, and inside the M directory there's my app tier 1, my app tier 2, the physical packages. We also see that under the NetKernel directory we find the repository metadata structure, including the signature and all the hashes of all the various packages we've deployed. For the purposes of this demo, what I'm going to do is use my desktop as the deployment server. I could put this repository on an HTTP server, I could put it on a file share. It really doesn't matter where I locate this. The production machine, as long as it can resolve the URI to it, is able to source the packages from whichever location we choose to put it in. So for the moment, for the purposes of the demo, I'll just put it in a file system. But one thing I do need is to be able to tell the production server about the location of the repository and the structure of the repository. So what I need to do is go back to my repository, and I can generate some connection settings that I can provide to the production server. Again, I'm asked for the key store. The key is the same, password is the same. The only difference now is I need to tell it what the base URI of that repository directory is. As again, this could be an HTTP URI, but in this case it's a file on my desktop repo. So let's generate those settings and save that file. We see that those settings were saved here. If I look inside that folder, I've got some repository settings. It's just an XML descriptor, and I've got the public key certificate, which will be used to verify the signatures of the packages. In the next section, we'll show how to take this repository, the description, and deploy it into a production machine.